All right, y'all, I am going to show y'all some of my favorite canning recipes that saves me so much time and money in the kitchen. I can make dinner in just a few minutes. And we're going to start out with some black beans. And these are the same recipe as pinto beans. If you want to use any other kind of dried beans, you can. But these are some black beans that I had. And I'm also going to make some chili. I'm going to do the canned chili without beans. And you could even put these together and make a delicious chili, but you can do so much with this chili, especially a good hot dog chili or make tacos, so many things. And I'll have a big list of what you can do with all this. And it takes just a few minutes of your time in the beginning and doing all the work then. And then you'll have so much rewards later when you have 15 minutes to get dinner on the table. So I'll have all the recipes linked down below in the description box. I'm going to start with the chili, but I am going to do I did the beans first just because they're going to take a lot longer. But here's the chili. We're going to start with that, showing you that. I've just browned some ground beef, and you use 1 onion. So like I said, I'll have the recipe down below so you can make the exact recipe. So I'm going to add in some canned tomatoes. And I also added in a can of tomato sauce just because the research I've done on this recipe, they say that it needs a little bit more liquid. So you can safely add in some broth, some water, or some tomato juice or tomato sauce. That's what I did, and tomato juice too. So mix that together and add in your spices. You're going to add in some salt. You're going to add in also some cumin seeds, the recipe says, but I'm just adding in cumin, and I'm adding in some chili powder. I'll have the exact recipe down below. And you're just going to simmer that for 20 minutes, and that's it for the chili. And if you need to add other things like a hot pepper, it has a recipe for that, but I'm not adding in the hot pepper because my grandkids are probably going to eat this too. So all you're going to do is put your hot product in your hot jar. You're going to get the air bubbles out. You're going to make sure you're at 1-inch headspace and wipe the rim of the jar really good so it doesn't mess up your seal. And that's it. Just put your lid and your ring on, and we're going to process this chili and the beans at the same time. By the time you bring it up to pressure and do everything and then bring it down to pressure, it takes a little bit of time, so you want to save as much time as possible. So I licked my beans like my grandma would say and washed them really good, and I added water over the top. You want about 1 inch over the top of the beans, and you're going to soak them, either the 12 to 18 hour one, or you're just going to do a quick soak, and I'll have that down below. So we're going to do a quick soak. So now, even if you've done the quick or the long soak, we're going to drain them, and we're going to add fresh water to them, and we're going to cook them for 30 minutes, and that's it. And like I said, you can do pinto beans or black beans with that. So now we're just going to add salt to the jar. I'm adding in a 1/2 teaspoon for a pint and a whole teaspoon for a quart. And you're just going to add half the jar with beans because, believe me, you do not want to get those beans out of your jar when they're so thick and compact that you can't even hardly move the jar around. So make sure you just do half beans and half liquid, and you'll get the perfect amount in your jar. So I'm just going to go ahead and load my jar with the beans, and then I'm going to add the bean broth, and you're going to do 1-inch headspace for this as well. So just like we did before, we're just going to get all the air bubbles out and make sure we're at 1-inch headspace, and then you're going to wipe the rim of the jar clean, make sure nothing interferes with the seal. And then we're going to put everything in the canner at one time. That saves so much time. Believe me, you want to make sure that when you can, you want to get stuff with the same amount of time, and it'll save you so much time. And you can do a bunch of jars at once. That's why I like the tall Presto. So we're going to stack the jars in here, and we're going to process them for 1 hour and 15 minutes, just like the beans and the chili. And they're both done together. We're going to lay a towel out. You want to make sure that they are in a room with no draft, and you're going to make sure wherever you put them, they're going to go undisturbed for at least 12 hours. Then you can check the seal and make sure, because you can reprocess it, but you cannot do it after 24 hours. So that's why I like to check mine at 12. And if it doesn't seal, you can just put it in the fridge and eat it right away, or it'll last in there a couple days. So we got chili, we've got beans. You can make tacos, you can make soup, You can make sloppy joes, you could make nachos, just so many things you can do with this, and it only takes a few minutes to put it together. And with those black beans, you could make a soup, you could make chili beans with them, you could also even make refried beans, and you can even turn them into a veggie burger. Y'all, I think this is my favorite canning recipe. This is from the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving, and it is the barbecue pork. You are going to love this. This is the ultimate convenience food. It's so easy to make, and you're just going to need 1 onion. I doubled the recipe because it's that good, and you might want to double the sauce even if you're only using 1 Boston butt. But it takes ketchup, so I'm going to add the ketchup to the onions, and I will have the exact recipe link down below in the description box. You're going to also use some brown sugar. I think I was out of brown sugar, so I added some white in there. It's packed. And then add in some vinegar. Make sure it's 5% if you're going to can with it. So you can use white or cider vinegar. So I'm going to mix that together. Next, I'm going to add in some Worcestershire sauce. Then we'll put in some mustard. I'm using brown mustard here. Then you're going to add in some honey, a couple tablespoons of honey. And then you're just going to stir that around. Make sure you stir that really good. And then you're just going to simmer that for 20 minutes. And then you're going to put it in your jars. I mean, how easy is that? And you're going to use 1 4 to 5 pound Boston butt cut into large chunks, not shredded. So after we simmered this, we're going to go ahead and can it. And we're just going to put it in our jars, and this one is going to be 1 hour and 15 minutes as well with 1 inch headspace. So we're going to go ahead and get that in the jars and process this. And canned chicken is my favorite, but I think this is my second favorite. And even if you don't make the barbecue sauce, you can can your pork in water or broth or whatever you want to can it in, and you can heat that up and put your barbecue sauce in there. But if you want to make something that doesn't have barbecue sauce, you don't have to use it that way. But this is just another convenience meal that we can make a barbecue sandwich just for a lunch or dinner. Make some slaw, put that on a bun, and you've got a delicious lunch or dinner. So now we're going to go to another love I have of ground beef, and I'm going to can this 2 ways. I'm going to can it, I'm just going to fry it and put it in the jars, and I'm also going to make meatballs, but you could also form them into patties, and they make a really easy and delicious fried hamburger steak. So all I'm going to do is take my hamburger in my cast iron skillet and just brown it. And then while I'm browning that, I will go ahead and make my meatloaf, or my meatballs. And this is a great thing when you have a good sale, when you find a good sale on ground beef and you can stock up on it. So I'm going to go ahead and brown this, and then we'll start on the meatballs. And I'm just forming mine. I'm putting them in a spoon, so I will have them all about the same size. So you can fry these in a pan, or you can also put them in the oven if you have a really large amount of them. But you just want them brown. You don't want to cook them. You just want to brown it just like the ground beef. So I'm going to form my meatballs and fry them up in the pan, and then I'm going to drain them on paper towels, and I'm going to heat up the beef broth. I did my meatballs the night before, and that's another great tip if you want to break it up into 2 or 3 days. So I've got my meatballs, they're cold, so I'm going to put them in the broth, and I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then we can start the process. So this is good with patties or meatballs or whatever. You can put it in the fridge the night before and then heat it up and do it again the next day. Another time saver. So let's go ahead and heat them in the broth. And like I said, you could use water or you could use tomato sauce, either way. So I'm just going to do these the same way. They go in 1 inch headspace. You're going to get out all the air bubbles. Make sure you wipe the rim really good and put your lid and ring on there. And we are going to process both of them for the same amount of time, 1 hour and 15 minutes for pints. Then you're going to do the ground beef the same way. Instead of just putting it in the jar like that, I'm going to put mine and my ground beef and my broth together so they can simmer and stay warm together. So I'm just going to put it in my jar. This is beef broth, but like I said, you could use water or you could use tomato sauce, or I use tomato juice. I think the tomato juice is thin, so it works good in this process if you want to, use it for tacos and soups and things like that. So I'll go ahead and just put it in my jar, just like the other ones. It's an inch head space, and just get all the air bubbles out, wipe the rim, and you're going to put everything in the canner all the same time, and it's going to process at the same amount of time. And even if it was like a 5-minute difference, it's okay if you go over your recipe by 5 minutes. Don't ever go under the time. So it can go a little bit longer, but never go under your processing time. So it can go over 5 or 10 minutes. All right, now it's processed. We're going to let it sit undisturbed for 12 hours, and then we'll check the seals, and hopefully all our jars will seal. And this is so good. You can make so many different things. You can make spaghetti and meatballs with the meatballs, meatball subs, Swedish meatballs, barbecue meatballs, sweet and sour meatballs, meatball pizza, Italian meatball soup, a meatball casserole. With that ground beef, you can make tacos, shepherd's pie, sloppy joes, stuffed peppers, quesadillas, nachos, beefy mac and cheese, even a ground beef fried rice. And I know y'all probably thought I sounded like Bubba from Forrest Gump, but there is so many things that you can do with it. Here's another favorite that I always need in my canning pantry. And the hardest part is peeling the potatoes. You'll need about 20 pounds. Just cut them up and let them soak in some water so they don't discolor. Get your jars hot and ready. You're going to boil the potatoes for 2 minutes in some water. You're going to drain them, and then you're going to boil some fresh water. And then you're going to put your potatoes in your jar. I'm adding salt, but you don't have to. Use your canning salt, not iodized salt. Put you a half a teaspoon of salt in there for pints and a teaspoon for quarts. You're going to put your potatoes in there. They're going to be parboiled, not cooked all the way. And then you're going to boil some fresh water and pour it over the top, and that's it. Do the same thing you do with the other recipes. Get all your air bubbles out. Make sure you're at an inch head space and wipe the rim of the jar. And we're going to process those until they're done. And you can do so many things with these potatoes. You can pan fry them. You can roast them. You can make a cheesy potato bake. You can make potato soup. Beef and potato hash. You can make a potato casserole. You can make breakfast burritos, loaded potato bites, and the best potato salad. And make your own relish. That's another favorite of mine. And you can put that in your potato salad. But this is a great thing to have on your shelf. This is another favorite of mine, vegetable soup. You can do so much with it. It's just like a blank canvas. You can do this basic recipe and then add whatever you want to when you open up the jar. And I will have that recipe linked down below in the description box. Here's another one that the hardest part about it is just peeling the vegetables and cutting everything up. And you could add chicken to this. You could add pork. You could add beef. Any kind of beef. You can add hamburger or roast. Have your canned roast or your canned hamburger and just add it to that soup. You got dinner in 5 or 10 minutes. Just add some cornbread or some biscuits or something. You cannot beat it. It just reminds me of childhood. My mom used to make this for us all the time. This is another rock star on your shelf, especially when it's cold outside. Heat it up with some cornbread or some biscuits. And even if you're a person that eats soup all year long, you're going to love it too. This final recipe, I'll have it linked down below, is stewed tomatoes with just some chopped tomatoes, some celery, onion, and spices. You just have to have that on your shelf. You might not use it all the time, but it comes in handy for so many wonderful dishes. You can put it in a chili. You can put it in a beef or chicken stew. You can make a stuffed pepper soup. That's really good. A Tuscan white bean soup. You could make Spanish rice with it. Goulash. Sausage and tomato skillet. You could put it in ziti or lasagna. You could make a tomato and potato casserole, or even my favorite, the cabbage roll casserole. Everything that I've showed you here helps me so much when planning my dinner, and it makes my family happy. It makes me happy because I know everything that's in the jar, and I can stock up on these things at the grocery store and they're on sale, and I can take a whole day and just make them, and they're on my shelf for 1.5 to 2 years, and we're all happy. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the description box.